assez de lumière. Un peu la lumière plus... Bien, meneer de staatssecretaris voor Europese en internationale aangelegenheden, beste Pascal, monsieur le commissaire à l'Europe et aux organisations internationales, mon cher Alain, ladies and gentlemen, je suis, en tant que président du Parlement, très heureux de vous accueillir aujourd'hui au sein de notre hémicycle pour cette journée consacrée aux Bruxellois internationaux, Brussels Voice 22, qui marque l'aboutissement du projet Live Here, Speak Here, porté par commissionnaire.brussels, le commissaire à l'Europe et le secrétaire d'État aux affaires européennes. Alors vous le savez, Bruxelles est une petite ville-monde, je ne vous apprends rien, c'est une ville multiculturelle, c'est une ville qui revendique son statut de capitale européenne et de grande métropole cosmopolite, même si son territoire est petit. Elle est même, peut-être que vous ne le savez pas, elle est une des villes-régions les plus cosmopolites au monde après Dubaï. On parle de 184 nationalités différentes qui coexistent sur notre territoire. Les Bruxellois internationaux, ce sont toutes ces femmes et tous ces hommes qui ont la nationalité d'un autre pays que la Belgique, mais qui vivent à Bruxelles et qui font vivre Bruxelles parce qu'ils lui apportent au niveau culturel, au niveau social et au niveau économique. C'est le cas d'un habitant sur trois, c'est dire s'ils sont une composante essentielle de notre région, et je suis de ceux, mesdames, messieurs, qui sont convaincus que c'est une force de Bruxelles que d'être un tel creuset de culture. Ik blijf dit bij elke mogelijke gelegenheid herhalen en dagelijks worden meer en meer Brusselaars en politici zich van deze kracht bewust. Je le disais, c'est une force sur le plan de la cohésion sociale, c'est une force pour la construction de l'identité bruxelloise, d'ailleurs les deux vont de pair, et c'est une force pour le rayonnement de notre région sur la scène internationale. Il est donc important d'avancer tous ensemble pour développer et faire rayonner Bruxelles, pour garantir l'avenir de ses habitants et pour ancrer chez eux un sentiment de citoyenneté partagée. Chacun doit pouvoir se sentir chez soi à Bruxelles. Une des façons d'ailleurs de se sentir pleinement chez soi, c'est de pouvoir se faire entendre, c'est de pouvoir exprimer ses attentes, exprimer ses préoccupations, exprimer ses idées et surtout peser sur les décisions politiques. Although everyone knows that in Brussels, one person in three cannot cast her or his vote in the regional elections. Un tiers des habitants ne peuvent s'exprimer sur les décisions qui ont un impact sur leur vie quotidienne. Qu'on parle de mobilité, qu'on parle de transport public, d'urbanisme, de patrimoine, de gestion des déchets, de travaux publics, de lutte contre la pollution, de développement durable, d'allocation familiale, d'éducation ou de budget. Aujourd'hui, les populations qui n'ont pas le droit de vote ne peuvent pas se faire entendre. Et on le constate pourtant à la lecture du manifeste, les Bruxellois internationaux ont évidemment les mêmes préoccupations que leurs voisins belges. Ils demandent une mobilité moderne, ils demandent des espaces publics accueillants, des logements abordables, une ville propre, des services publics accessibles, et ils demandent bien sûr qu'on leur donne la parole dans l'élaboration de la politique régionale. Brussel is niet alleen een multiculturele, maar ook een complexe stad, waarvan de toekomst en de organisatie soms voer zijn voor debatten. De uitbreiding van het stemrecht zou het voor iedereen mogelijk maken om aan deze belangrijke debatten deel te nemen. Ce serait une avancée, évidemment, en termes d'égalité des droits et une plus-value en matière de cohésion sociale. L'initiative, en la matière, vous le savez, en revient au fédéral. Mais je suis convaincu que le développement de la participation citoyenne apporte également, et en tout cas, entre-temps, des solutions à ce problème profond de déficit démocratique. C'est la formule dont se sont saisis le secrétaire d'État aux questions européennes et internationales et le commissaire à l'Europe et aux organisations internationales en lançant la consultation Live Here, Speak Here, qui a abouti au manifeste qui est présenté aujourd'hui au gouvernement et au Parlement bruxellois. À titre personnel, je m'étais déjà rendu compte de l'intérêt très fort des Bruxellois non belges pour l'avenir de notre région lors du cabinet citoyen que j'ai organisé il y a quelques années, lorsque j'étais ministre avec mon homologue Sven Gatz, sous la législature précédente. Nous avions invité tous les Bruxellois à organiser des réunions où ils débattaient de l'image de Bruxelles, de ses atouts, de ses points faibles, qu'est-ce qu'on pouvait faire pour renforcer sa promotion. Et il y a eu un atelier en anglais qui a rassemblé beaucoup de non-belges. Et je dois vous dire que c'était un des ateliers qui a le mieux fonctionné. Et donc je continue à croire viscéralement aux approches participatives. Et ici, dans ce Parlement, dans lequel vous êtes installés, vous devez savoir que nous sommes le premier Parlement au monde à avoir lancé ce qu'on appelle les commissions délibératives mixtes. Ce sont 15 députés élus au suffrage universel qui sont accompagnés de 45 députés tirés au sort. Et ensemble, ils siègent 45 citoyens, merci Alain, 45 citoyens tirés au sort, donc 60 personnes qui réfléchissent à des thématiques qui sont amenées par les citoyens sur base d'une pétition. D'ailleurs, tout à l'heure, après cette réunion, nous avons la 3e commission délibérative de ce Parlement qui va se réunir et qui va évoquer la question de comment est-ce qu'on peut concilier biodiversité et développement de la ville. All these tools are available to anyone over the age of 16 living in Brussels, regardless of their nationality, because participating in the life of the city should not be a matter of nationality, but of citizenship. Et je peux déjà vous dire que sur base de l'expérience de ces 2 commissions délibératives, beaucoup de Bruxellois internationaux ou de non-belges ont accepté de s'inscrire dans ce processus et ils sont particulièrement impliqués dans les questions qui ont été débattues. Voilà, mesdames, messieurs, je ne serai pas plus long. Ik ben ervan overtuigd dat het manifest dat ons zal worden voorgesteld tot vruchtbaar debatten zal leiden. I would like to wish everybody a fruitful meeting. Thank you all for your attention. Merci pour votre attention. Dank u voor uw aandacht. Et je vais à présent céder la parole à Monsieur le secrétaire d'État, Pascal Smet. Vous avez la parole, Monsieur le secrétaire d'État. Merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ladies and gentlemen, I will only speak in English because I think that English should also be the third language of Brussels. We will not translate all our laws and things in English because that will be a little bit too long. But I think that... I know, but I want to speak English. They know. I don't know if they know. You know this translation? But I guess everybody understands English. So,
en tout cas, on a des interprètes et ceux qui souhaitent une traduction dans la langue française ou néerlandaise peuvent le faire en choisissant le canal et en mettant leur casque. Et je remercie encore nos interprètes.
Thank you. So, but I will speak English, so I guess you don't need a translation. So, but I'm serious about it. I think if Brussels wants to be truly an international capital, and I'm not the only one because many political parties in Brussels and representatives, they believe it, then we should embrace it completely, and that means that every international citizen or any citizen should be able to go in English to the municipalities, to get in other offices and more. I think we should go further. If you go to the airport, you know, and your check-in agent mostly of the time will have a badge, and on the badge you will see all the colors of the flags of the languages that he or she speaks. Well, maybe we could do that with civil servants too. There is nothing wrong if you are a Portuguese-speaking guy and you have a Portuguese-speaking guy in front of you. Well, of course, documents will be in French or Dutch and maybe English, that he does it in Portuguese. I don't see a problem with it, but some people will see problems in it, of course, like anyone. But let's say English should be the language. So I'm very happy that you are here. Normally you should have been more, but I think that the beautiful weather has kept some outside in the city, and I understand them because I hope you all agree with me that the last years Brussels has known a real transformation. In a city environment. It used to be a much more filthy city. Let's to be honest, a little bit filthy still today, as you said in the thing. But the whole ambience, the whole way that the city is being lived, it changed completely in a positive way. I'm now something like 26 years in Brussels, so I'm not an international Brusselaar. I'm a Belgian Brusselaar, a Flemish Brusselaar. So in some way, I'm a Brusselaar of the first generation, you know. there are still people who are native born here. I see a predecessor of me who did international affairs, and you too, yeah, you are born natives one, but you become an exception because 70% of the people living in the city were not born here, are foreign born of our parents. So that's true. But anyway, so we are a very international city, and the city is getting much better. And as the President of the Parliament has said, it's so a pity that in an international city, international people cannot vote for the regional elections. It's possible for the municipal elections, for the very local elections, but we do understand it's more local issues, and the regional level is finally the level where the main political orientations, decisions are being made, and that people cannot, well, when you're a Frenchman and Englishman, no, English is no longer a member of the European Union, but whatever, we could go further than the European Union, that you are not able to vote. And you know, in politics, it's, we all know Descartes who said, je pense donc je suis. In politics, a little bit like I vote, I exist. Je vote donc je suis. It goes a little bit like that in politics. And so we have to work on it. But as the President has said, it's not a decision of the Brussels Parliament, because I'm quite convinced if we had a constitutional right to decide upon it, that most in this Parliament would vote and give you voting rights. So that's already a good thing, but that's a decision that has to be taken up by the federal level, and they are not that keen on it because, you know, if they do it for Brussels, they have to do it for Flanders and Wallonia, and the Flemish, they don't know really if that's a good idea, and the French-speaking, the Wallons, I don't really know what they think about it. But we could make an exception for Brussels. We could say, you know, it's an international city. We are not like Flanders. We are not like Wallonia. We are not like Belgium. We are something special. And so treat us in a special way. That, I think, is the position that we all will take. But myself and also the government, but we spoke with Alain too, we all thought that, you know, we cannot wait till the moment that the federal parliament is going to decide to give you voting rights. We wanted to hear what you were thinking about Brussels. And let's be honest, there has been a big change in Brussels. If you look to 20 years ago, most people working for the European institutions or related to the European institutions, they were basically living in their bubble, you know, the European bubble. Well, let's be honest about it. It was nice. Most of them spent a week here. In the weekend, they went to Barcelona, where they lived, talking to other cities, because, well, not everybody of you, I know it changed a lot, but in the beginning they were very well paid all. And so for them it was like a temporary workspace, and they never really embraced Brussels. And I think since maybe 10 years, 5 years, even more, the last years, let's keep it on it, there has been a real big change that people, whether expats or whether people related directly or indirectly with the European Union, they had this feeling that by working and living in this city, that they loved this city. And I know, probably like you, that Brussels is not a city in which you fall immediately in love with. It's not like, oof, wow, it's passion. But we all know from our private lives, I guess, that that kind of passionate love on the first sight never lasts. So, well, there are exceptions. But mostly, for the most of us, it's temporary. So, for the most of you, I know too, is that when you see a little bit and the city gives itself, and it's a little bit difficult city to give, but once she gives it, she's in your heart forever. And that's, I think, what counts. And I think this change of opinion in the mentality of the people with an international background living in this city, that they love this city and that they want to get involved, is something relatively new. And that we, as politicians and elected people in the city region, must embrace too. And that's the reason why myself, Alain, and others, we decided we want to hear your votes, because finally you are one of us. You are us, and we are you. And so it's the whole thing that we have decided. Let's try to find a modern way of hearing what these people who cannot express themselves by elections, what they think about Brussels, what are the priorities, what are the suggestions, what are the critical points, what can be better. And you know, big surprise, you're like all of us. And the things that concerns you are basically the same that someone born here, or first generation like me, or second generation who came here, thinks it's important in the city. Of course, there are some specific items, like being well received in the local municipalities. We know. That can be done better. Although for some international people, they can do it at the Office of the Commissioner General, but even we have to work on that. Using more English, there are things that should facilitate, and I think that together with the government, we have to make more work of it, to embrace our international status and be more open on that, and we will do that. So I'm very happy that many of you responded to the enquête, that many of you participated in the debates, that we now have this kind of manifesto. And I thought it was also very important that this manifesto would not only be addressed to the government, but also today in the heart of democracy, and now they are going to love me, parliamentarians, we as members of the government, they sometimes think we don't like them that much, but that's not true. But it's the heart of democracy, and it's here where everything should happen, n'est-ce pas, Monsieur le Président? And I want to get more better points, you see. It's here where it happens, and that this report, or this manifesto, is being not only presented here, but also in the hands of the President, and I want to salute the members of Parliament who are here. I see of One Brussels Verraad, I see from VLD, I see for Ecolo, I see PS, I see PTB. I don't think I forgot another party. Did I forget someone, another party? I say it because you know which party is here and who is interested. So they are not all here, but the ones who are here, it's good you are here because we wanted to do it, that they hear also what's your thing and how they should be involved the coming months and years in their work in this parliament and listen to your voice. Because finally, I'm going to end with that. That was it all about. We wanted you to speak out loudly so that we hear your voice, and with your voice that we can all work here. And you can hear from me in the name of the government, and also already in the name of the President of the Parliament, in the name of the Parliament, that we will take seriously what we are going to do. And at the end of the meeting, I can retake the word, and then I will make another proposal that we want to continue with. So thank you very much for your engagement. We are very happy that you love Brussels, and if you love really someone, you also say the things that can make him or her or him much better, and that is what you have finally have done. So thank you very much.
Allow me now to yield the floor to Mr. Alain Hutchinson, Brussels Commissioner for Europe and International Organizations.
Thank you, Mr. President. So you heard my name is Hutchinson. I was born British. I'm Belgian now. Well, I've got the double nationality. My father was British. He liberated Brussels. He was one of those liberating Brussels in '44. So you see, it's a long story of immigration in this city in the region of Brussels. And I'm very proud to be here with you today in this quality of a commissioner of this government. Nevertheless, I'm going to talk French because it's one of the languages in Brussels, as you know, and it's my mother tongue, if I can say. So it would be easier for me. Alors, je suis d'abord très heureux de vous accueillir ici, moi aussi, parce que j'ai passé beaucoup d'années dans cet hémicycle comme parlementaire, comme ministre, comme Pascal à l'époque, et c'était un vrai plaisir pour moi d'y revenir quelques années plus tard, et surtout d'y revenir avec vous, parce que je pense qu'effectivement, nous vivons dans cette région internationale, dans cette ville internationale, avec énormément, beaucoup de nos concitoyens qui sont là, qui pensent beaucoup de choses, qui vivent comme nous les avantages et les inconvénients de la grande ville et de l'urbanité, mais qui, eux, par contre, contrairement aux autres, n'ont pas grand-chose à dire puisqu'ils ne participent pas aux élections. Et donc je pense que cette initiative, ce manifeste et ce qui suivra, parce que j'espère qu'on ne va pas s'arrêter là, à venir aujourd'hui présenter un manifeste, discuter quelques instants avec nos députés et les membres du Parlement bruxellois, mais qu'après ça, nous continuerons, et Pascal dira peut-être un mot là-dessus, mais je pense qu'il faut poursuivre cette expérience dans le temps, il faut la pérenniser en attendant, comme il l'a dit, que la loi change, ce qui risque de prendre un certain temps, comme tout en Belgique, y compris les travaux d'ailleurs, ça prend beaucoup de temps. Alors en attendant, je pense que c'est vraiment une opportunité, et j'espère que nos élus, et j'en suis convaincu d'ailleurs, il y en a quelques-uns ici que je connais et qui sont impliqués là-dedans, j'espère que nos élus vous entendront et entendront ce que vous avez à dire par rapport à la gestion de notre région. Je voudrais simplement souligner que si je suis un chaud partisan de la participation de ce type de non-belges dans la vie politique de la ville où ils vivent, je voudrais quand même rappeler ici que le droit de vote existe pour les non-belges aux élections communales. Et que malheureusement, je le souligne quand même, malheureusement, le taux de participation des non-belges aux élections communales reste très faible. Je pense que la fois passée, aux dernières élections communales, on a atteint à peine les 23% de participation, ce qui est quand même fort peu. Alors quand on a des choses à dire, je crois qu'il faut, il est bon de revendiquer ce droit de vote, mais une fois qu'on l'a, il faut l'utiliser, sinon ça ne sert à rien. Or, je crois que c'est extrêmement important. Je remercie aussi Pascal d'avoir demandé au commissariat, à mon commissariat et à mon équipe, que je remercie et qui est ici, de participer à l'organisation de ces débats, parce que, en fait, le commissariat à l'Europe et aux organisations internationales que je dirige, à la demande du gouvernement, parce que c'est une initiative du gouvernement bruxellois, mais c'est notre quotidien. De vivre avec les expats, de vivre avec non seulement les institutions, qui est une partie de mon boulot, et de faire en sorte que les institutions, qu'elles soient européennes ou internationales, Dieu sait qu'elles sont nombreuses à Bruxelles, trouvent les moyens de fonctionner très bien et le mieux possible dans cette région-ville qui les accueille. Mais c'est surtout aussi une partie de notre boulot, au travers par exemple de l'Expat Welcome Desk au commissariat, c'est l'accueil de tous les expats et de tous ceux qui viennent pour travailler dans ces institutions, autour de ces institutions, des familles qui arrivent ici, et Dieu sait qu'ils sont nombreux et qu'ils continuent à arriver chaque jour dans Bruxelles. Et donc c'est notre quotidien au commissariat, et donc à cet égard, nous sommes extrêmement sensibles à toute cette question et à pouvoir vous donner le temps. Je voudrais peut-être, et puis je vais m'arrêter là parce qu'on est là pour vous écouter, pas pour nous écouter, je voudrais quand même, surtout à l'attention de mes collègues du Parlement ici, bruxellois, dire un peu ma tristesse quand je vois, quand je lis sur les réseaux sociaux un certain nombre de commentaires faits par des Belges, entre guillemets, d'origine, si je puis dire, qui font des commentaires absolument débiles sur un certain nombre de revendications et ne fût-ce que sur votre présence et sur la présence des expats à Bruxelles, mais aussi alors, si vous demandez que quelqu'un vous accueille dans une commune en anglais, ça c'est tout à fait pour eux incompréhensible, c'est inacceptable, etc. Il y a toute une série de commentaires, j'espère que vous n'avez pas vu, moi je les ai vus malheureusement sur notre page Facebook par exemple, qui m'ont vraiment irrité. Et je pense qu'il est grand temps que les Bruxellois prennent conscience de l'importance de la fonction internationale de cette région. Nous avons fait 2 études déjà depuis le début du commissariat. La dernière a été, qui est une actualisation de la première, a été réalisée il y a 1 an à peu près, sur l'importance de la présence internationale à Bruxelles. Et on cite souvent ces chiffres, mais je les rappelle quand même, c'est 22-23% de l'emploi bruxellois dépend de la fonction internationale de cette région, d'une part. Deuxièmement, à peu près le quart du produit régional intérieur brut, donc de la richesse régionale, dépend aussi de l'activité internationale et du statut international de cette région de Bruxelles-Capitale. Donc, vouloir négliger ça et jeter ça aux orties, je pense que c'est irresponsable et irréfléchi. Ce sont des chiffres extrêmement importants et vérifiés, ce n'est pas nous qui les avons faits, on n'a pas compté nous, nous avons confié cette étude à des universités qui ont fait ce travail très sérieusement. Et donc je crois que s'il y a une chose qu'il faut mettre en évidence, c'est celle-là. Et qu'à ce titre-là, nous avons tout intérêt à être accueillants, d'une part, bienveillants, et à écouter et à travailler ensemble sur l'avenir de cette région auquel vous participez très certainement. Voilà, Monsieur le Président, ce que je voulais dire pour commencer. Donc, pour le reste, je pense que maintenant, on va demander à un peu vos porte-paroles, si je puis dire, en tout cas, des expats qui ont été extrêmement actifs dans la préparation de ce travail, de prendre la parole et de venir un peu nous expliquer. Voilà. Et puis, peut-être présenter.
Merci, Monsieur Hutchinson. On peut applaudir. Alors, before getting to the heart of the matter, allow me to introduce the deputy present with us today. Donc, je vais présenter les députés qui sont présents parmi nous avant d'entrer dans le vif du sujet. Je vais commencer par la gauche, évidemment, c'est pavlovien chez moi. On a notre ami Fadila Lahanan, nous avons monsieur le député Mohamed Ouriagli, nous avons Martin Casier, peut-être ça on le voit. On a Marie Lecoq qui est parmi nous également, Île de Sabe, Else Rochette. Également, alors je me tourne par là, nous avons Isabelle, j'en ai oublié ? Oh, Monsieur Roberti, je m'excuse, vous êtes tellement discret là derrière Marie. Monsieur Roberti, nous avons Isabelle Potier qui est également parmi nous, nous avons Carla De Jong qui est ici, et nous avons derrière Françoise de Smet également. Est-ce que j'en ai oublié? Et évidemment, le vice-président du Parlement, mon ami Guy Van Engel. Voilà, on peut les applaudir pour leur présence. Merci à toutes et tous pour votre présence et l'intérêt que vous portez à ces recommandations. Voilà, j'invite à présent les représentants d'International Bruxelles qui vont nous présenter les propositions politiques qui figurent dans le manifeste pour la région qui a été élaboré par les Bruxellois internationaux dans le cadre du projet Library Speakery. Vous avez la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et bonjour à tous. Je m'appelle Ilaria, je suis d'origine italienne et j'habite à Bruxelles depuis 15 ans. Mais en fait, comme je dis à mon mari, en belge, assez souvent, chez nous, ik ben de echte Bruxeller. C'est très émotionnant d'être ici, dans une des maisons de la démocratie bruxelloise, et ça serait poli en fait de vous remercier pour cette invitation. But I will not do it because I think we should not be here by invitation only. I think we have a right to be here. I'm here to present 3 of the 6 chapters of the Manifesto of the International Brusseler. The first chapter has to do with the democratic deficit of Brussels, where regional policies are largely made without considering the needs and the expectations of 1/3 of its population. We want to be recognized as part of society. We want our voice to be heard in the democratic process, and we don't want a special treatment. We just want to be citizens. What does it mean in practice? Well, first of all, this is about the right to vote and to be elected in this parliament. We simply claim the right to influence policies that affect our daily life and that we contribute to finance. And while we wait for the right to vote, we have a couple of suggestions in the manifesto that could improve the legitimacy of the decision-making. One is about creating a regional assembly of randomly selected Belgians and non-Belgians to be an advisory to the government. And then the other idea is a coordination mechanism of existing networks representing the international community to channel a bit our views. On the right to vote for local and European elections that the Commissioner has mentioned, it is true. It's no more than 25% of people that already have that right to vote in the local and in the European elections that exercise it. Why is that? There are many reasons. Many people are not aware of it. The other reason is that it's very difficult to register. Every commune has its own rules, has its own deadlines. So that's not simple. And actually, if you move from one commune to the other, which is the case for many of us over a decade, you wonder if you have to register again, for example. So really not easy. We have to be honest about the fact that the complexity of the political system discourages sometimes people. So we ask to make it easier to exercise the existing voting right, and one way to do that would be an automatic registration on the electoral list when we register as residents. Simple example. And I think a training on the political system would be highly appreciated by the international community. The second chapter that I'm here to present is about public services. We struggle sometimes with our interaction with the public administration. I know this can be a problem for everyone, but for us, it's particularly difficult in one specific moment. We are vulnerable when we arrive here. Often, not everyone arrives with a big contract, an expat contract. We often arrive here when we are young, when we have little experience with life, a badly paid job, often not paid at all. We don't know French or Dutch, and it's not easy to start a new life in another country. So we call on this parliament to make English an official administrative language of the region. Brussels is the second most cosmopolitan city in the world, and it should not shy away from this reality. We also ask, when necessary, to provide some interpretation, and we ask to improve the welcome package for the newcomers. And finally, we recommend to make processes more standardized across the different 19 communes. The governance system, the institutional and administrative architecture of Brussels is not very friendly to a newcomer. The third chapter of the manifesto is about public spaces. We all know someone, a friend, a colleague, a member of the family that didn't feel safe on the street at some point. Maybe it was you. I'm a woman, definitely it was me at some point. This is, for women, definitely an issue. And I think more in general, we all want a city where, it's nice to feel part of a community. It's a city that it's conceived for people, and where it's pleasant to spend time outdoor in public spaces. So the manifesto contains 3 low-effort, high-impact proposals that you will find that can improve to get a safer and more pleasant city for us all, including your current voters. We suggest to set up modular and portable community gardens, which would make the city greener and offer more occasions for interaction with other people. We ask to rethink, reclaim, and reuse car parkings. And I think, starting with Saint-Quentin would be a great leap forward. And talking about safety, we highly recommend a more integrated management of police forces and a very easy, quick win, which would be putting smart lighting on streets that don't feel safe. To conclude, diversity in Brussels is exceptional, but it's also normal. You all have an Italian friend, a German colleague, a Bulgarian neighbor, you name it. We just want this diversity to be reflected in this parliament. Thank you for listening, and over to Bryn for the next 3 chapters.
Merci Hilaria, merci le Président, merci les parlementaires d'être là. Ça va être très difficile de suivre, même si l'anglais est en fait ma langue maternelle, mais voilà. Moi, je m'appelle Bryn et je viens du Royaume-Uni. Je suis fier d'être bruxellois depuis presque 8 ans. Et moi, j'ai soutenu en fait l'implémentation de ce projet dès le début. Et je suis ravi d'être ici pour présenter ce manifeste. Et merci donc au Parlement de nous accueillir. Als je geen Nederlands spreekt, je moet nu horen op de kanaal 3. Het Nederlands is ook een taal van onze stad hier in Brussel. Ik zal een klein beetje Nederlands spreken. Sorry, mijn Nederlands is echt niet zo goed. Maar het is leuk hier. En ik spreek aan jullie. Het is leuk andere deelnemers van het project hier te zien. Zoveel internationale Brusselaars hier in het halfrond van het parlement. Ook mensen die ons hebben geholpen met de campagnes om het project te promoveren. We zijn heel mooi hier. Bedankt aan jullie allemaal hier te zijn. So I will go for English now. So I am presenting 3 topics. The first topic I'll present is modern mobility. Now, this should have been presented by Sevim Aktas. Unfortunately, she is ill today. If you are watching online, Sevim, I'm so sorry you couldn't be here, and I hope that you are feeling better. So mobility is one of these topics that affects everyone, not just international Brussels, and it's hugely important for individual well-being, but also for the functioning of our city. So who drove here by car today? Oh, nice. Because if you drive around Brussels, especially if you drive in a rush hour, you will spend 23 minutes waiting in queues or looking for parking. There's data from the sat-navs that tell us this. It's a lot of wasted time. It's a lot of unnecessary pollution that especially affects those who live in the poorest areas of town. I myself have recently moved from Saint-Catherine to Uccle, and I can tell you the air is very, very different. So that's why our first proposal in mobility is to take measures to reduce the number of cars in Brussels. Now, we have to consider the journeys of residents, the journeys of commuters. Everyone has to be able to get from A to B. So this is a huge and complex question. It's all about what it means to be an individual in a city. And we're not calling for a total ban on cars. But, and actually lots of us drive, I'm sure lots of international Brussels do drive and do have cars, but ultimately we do want to see fewer cars on the road, and we support measures to make that happen. The second proposal is about safety and well-being, specifically related to transport. Brussels has ever more people who are cycling, ever more people using their own legs to get around. This is great, but it means we need to think about the places where motorized transport and non-motorized transport meet. I've become a cyclist recently. I was a cyclist when I moved here. I had to give up, and now I've gone back to cycling, and I love it. And I think Brussels has been revolutionized literally in the past 2 years, but it can be a bit scary, and there's lots of infrastructure work that can be done where cars, buses, and bikes meet. And the third one is about inclusion and fairness. Everyone should be able to get around the area where they live, if they're walking or if they're on wheels. But pavements in Brussels are often damaged, they're often blocked. Accessibility matters. Now, this is especially for disabled residents, but actually good pavements are important for everyone, anyone with young children, people who are elderly, anyone who's injured. I broke a foot a while ago, and turns out having holes in the pavement is difficult. So let's make sure we can all use our streets by keeping the pavements in top condition. Little story, when I first moved to Brussels, a few weeks after moving here, I fell down a hole. And those of you who've always lived in Brussels might not realize, in other cities you don't fall down holes, but in Brussels I really fell down a hole. It was a surprise, but I'm still here 8 years later. So the second topic is a place to live, a place for life, and this is all about housing and urban planning. And here again, it's all about diversity and inclusion. So the first proposal is about an area of Brussels that's very important to lots of international Brussels, the European Quarter. We'd like to see a European Quarter that is for living, not just for working. And in general, actually, just central areas of Brussels should be more friendly for families, more parks, more schools, and more walkable, so fewer people feel the need to move to the suburbs or the Vlaamse Rand. The second proposal also comes from a very international perspective. We want a rental market where new arrivals can easily find a place to live. Goes back to this question of being vulnerable when you first arrive. For example, and this is very detailed, but it's really important, the blocked account system for your rental deposits, garantie locative, it's fantastic. I come from a country where you're quite vulnerable with your deposits. The blocked accounts are fantastic. They're really difficult for people who are in the process of moving to Brussels. If you don't have the right bank account, it's very hard. And I think that shows how, please keep us in mind when you make your policies, because sometimes a great policy has an unintended effect on a specific community. The third proposal is maybe going to surprise you. There's lots of stereotypes about my community, but we call for action to ensure that rents in Brussels remain affordable. Some parts of this proposal even call for rent caps, and which is pretty radical. I think that reminds us of two important things. On the one hand, many international Brussels actually have precarious employment or earn low wages. We are in all kinds of sectors, we do all kinds of jobs, but even in the European affairs sector, many people are in low-paid or precarious employment, earning well below the Belgian median. But on the other hand, it shows that even well-paid, high-qualified workers are beginning to worry about housing costs in Brussels. Brussels is not immune to the spiraling costs that have made other European capitals increasingly unlivable and have provoked waves of social segregation. As somebody who used to live in London before this, I can tell you some stories. And then the third topic I'm presenting, the final in the manifesto, is a clean city. It's all related to street cleaning and waste management. Now, again, this is an issue that matters to everyone. It's about well-being, it's about health, it's about our environmental conscience. But international Brussels, we can very easily compare what we see with other cities. We've lived in them, we come from them, we visit them, and so we're possibly the most aware of the challenges here. And it makes me sad to say it, but we have to be honest. The first impression of Brussels is not as a clean city. We walk around and we see piles of rubbish, and it makes me sad because I love this city. It could and it should be better. So one proposal in this topic is to get rid of the waste collection system based on piles of bin bags, plastic bin bags, big piles in the streets. This is a constant source of frustration, even incomprehension for international Brussels. We saw on the digital platform that the idea to get rid of bin bags was one of the most popular ideas on the whole platform. It is something that people immediately ask for all the time. Bin bags, sorry. I could talk for hours about bin bags, but I will move on. We recognize that it's difficult to do that. You can't just click your fingers and get rid of them. But one thing I realized participating in the workshop on this was how much everything hangs together. Everything's related. If you want to put collective bins close to people's houses, because it can't be a kilometre away, we're going to have to get rid of parking spaces. There's no other solution in a city with narrow roads and narrow pavements. Everything is linked. So the other proposals in this topic are, we'd like to support neighbourhood-led stewardship of local areas. We already see examples of that in Brussels, and we're really in favour of that. Let people take ownership of their spaces so they feel more empowered and more encouraged to care for them. Better inform the public, including those who do not yet speak French or Dutch, about possibilities for recycling and reuse, so we can really make the circular economy a reality. And finally, improve coordination between regional and municipal cleaning services. It's a small example, but we really should be able to avoid situations where a street gets cleaned 5 hours before we all put the rubbish out for it to be picked up, and then doesn't get cleaned again for a long time. Et voilà, ça c'est la fin de notre présentation du manifeste et des propositions. Mais en fait, ce n'était, pour les parlementaires, ce n'était qu'un avant-goût. Vous verrez plus d'explications plus détaillées de chaque proposition dans la boîte à outils politique que vous trouverez dans le manifeste. Vous avez reçu vos copies. Et merci, c'était un vrai plaisir de partager ces propositions avec vous au nom des Bruxellois internationaux. Mais maintenant, la grande question, bien sûr, c'est qu'est-ce qui sera la suite? Et donc maintenant, c'est à vous, chers parlementaires, en fait, de répondre, de questionner, de commenter pour dire ce que vous en pensez et si les propositions pourraient être implémentées. Je vous repasse la parole, Monsieur le Président.
Merci. Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours. Are there reaction, questions, comments about the project and proposals? Donc la parole est à vous et évidemment à nos collègues députés qui le souhaitent. Le plus dur, c'est toujours le premier, mais j'en vois déjà un qui lève la main. Vous avez la parole.
Merci beaucoup. Je m'appelle Nima Eri, je suis un libéral. Donc d'ailleurs, je tiens à remercier Brine et Hilarien pour un très beau travail. Et je vais switcher en anglais pour les autres. So I appreciate the hard work you guys put in. I think this is a fantastic project. There's some issues that I have as a liberal, for example, on the issue of mobility in terms of the security. So I think that it's a great start, but it's not a finished work. I think it still needs more work, and work that if everyone puts in all their hard work, it can create a project that can bring Brussels to the international stage. So we are Brussels, a European capital. We are a international, on the world stage. But for example, in terms of the language, if we forget the Germans, we won't be Belgians. We're not real Belgians. If we forget the issue of the fact of being able to have a secure and clean city, we won't have really tackled the needs of the citizens. So I really, appreciate the hard work that has been done, and I think that, with more hard work, we can bring in a project that is good. I just believe that there needs to be more done. But it's a great start, so I just wanted to say that.
Merci. Est-il d'autres? Oui, Els? Collega, u hebt het woord, vous avez la parole.
Dank u wel, meneer de voorzitter. Bedankt aan staatssecretaris Pascal Smet en meneer Hutchinson voor het initiatief dat jullie genomen hebben om een stem te geven aan al die Brusselaars die vandaag heel boeiende ideeën naar voren gebracht hebben. I'm one of my favorite sentences. It's from an artist, a Flemish artist, Walter Swennen. It's a painting and it's written on it in big letters. Zij die hier zijn, zijn van hier. Those who are here, they are from here. And that's something I really want to Yeah, it's a great artist. He deserves an applause. So, and really, I think that's something that here, especially in Brussels, it's something that we don't realize in our politics, and it's really a shame. All these, the cijfers, my English, I realize since I'm in politics, I'm speaking less English than before when I was working with refugees and newcomers. So, and all the proposals also, and Ilaria, what you told about the difficulties when you arrive here, it's not only for expats, but it counts also for other newcomers, for students, for people who seek for asylum and stay here. So I think really it's really valuable to give you a real voice, and that's that you can participate in the regional elections. It's something that me and my party, we will always continue to defend. It's not normal that this big group of people don't have a voice. What there were some other things I would like to say. One of the things also that you mentioned was the lack of participation on the municipality elections. You have the right to vote. Also, people, newcomers, after 5 years also, but people are not aware of it. So we will really work in the Parliament as One Brussels for that on a proposal, and we hope that the other parties will follow us in these ideas to make this right to vote automatically, and that all the 19 communes, because there are today already some communes who send letters to the foreigners in the commune, and others do not lots of efforts. So this is really something that we are engaging, that we will try to work for it to become this, because this is something we can do in Brussels, and the right to vote on regional elections. Fortunately not, but we will put some pressure on the federal colleagues for that. And then, the ideas really, they are great, and it's really a pity for Brussels, for us, that all these ideas and good practices that you all know from your countries, from your cities, that we don't use all these knowledge. And it's really a waste for our region. So I'm really happy with the manifesto, and we will come back to this text often, I think. And thank you very much for being here and for being involved in our in your city. Yeah.
Dank u, collega Rochette. Is er nog iemand die het woord vraagt? Y a-t-il d'autres collègues qui souhaitent intervenir? Oui, Martin, je vois, et Madame Potier. On va peut-être commencer par Monsieur à ma gauche.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Thank you all for being here. I think actually, Ilaria, you are exactly right. The point is not that you should be invited. You have a place here. It's your place, it's your city. You're living here, whatever the time, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, you are participating in the city life. You are benefiting it. You are also just an actor of the city life. And this is just what should be, what is a citizen. And a citizen has a right to vote. This actually should be just a basic element. We as PS, we have already introduced here at Brussels a resolution to make it possible for non-Europeans, for non-Belgians to vote to the regional election exactly in the same way as it is possible for the commune. Of course, as it was said before, unfortunately, it's not a matter we have in power directly here, but it is obviously, because it's just a question of basic rights, that we will continue that fight at the federal level where it should be. And you should know that, unfortunately, it's not a problem of the people from Brussels. And I think, as Pascal said it before, most of us here will totally agree on that point. It's coming from other parts of the country. But whatever. I mean, in politics, You do not win in a second, you do not win in a year. Sometimes it takes 10 years, a decade, 15 years, 20 years, whatever. This is politics, and the point is just never give up. And I think we owe you that, because you are also one of the actors, one of the creating of just richness within the city. So we, as politicians, also, we have the right to give you that, we should give you that, and we'll try to continue. And actually, when we look to your other propositions, it's basics that you should be able to vote. What are the rest of the propositions? They basically are the same as hundreds of other Brussels people. Hundreds of them. Of course, not all of them agrees on your propositions, but this is part of the democratic debate. And this is why you should be able not only to look to the debate, but to participate to it. I think it's very, very important. And it's also, in that sense, that it's also important to look to, as Elle said, not only, of course, to the specific needs of the international community, but basically to every need of the peoples living in Brussels. For example, the matter of the language. We are speaking almost 190 languages in Brussels. So, of course, English is important. And, of course, we have to work harder to make it possible in every commune to have people that can help people speaking English. But it's even true for Arabic. It's even true for a lot of other languages. Because this is Brussels. Brussels is not only French and Dutch. Brussels is much more than that. And this is also why, and I'm going a bit further away than your proposition, but that basically the institutional structure of Brussels, is not responding anymore to the real situation of Brussels. Of course, this is an enormous debate, which is complicated for French people, Dutch people within Brussels. We do not agree on all of the things. We do not agree always with our Dutch partners from the north of Brussels, from the French-speaking part of the south of Brussels. But we have an institutional framework which is not anymore aligned with the situation of Brussels. Whatever for the culture, for education, for sports, all of the way we have created Brussels based on two communities of language is not true anymore. Of course, this is, I said decade before, this is more than a decade of work. But this is part of things we have as politicians to have in mind, and that has to be our driving energy for making Brussels evolving in a good way, for you, but for whatever the 179 nationalities of Brussels. And I think this is the reason why I'm in politics. I think because we have, basically as most of the country, we have a society that has totally evolved, and we have democratic and institutional systems which are still from the 18th century, from the 19th century. And that challenge is basically there everywhere, for probably your own country too. But of course, in Brussels, we have a specific situation with the European institutions, with your work, with all the international character, but I think it's a democratic challenge for every politician in whatever the country, and for every citizen in whatever the country. Because politicians are not acting somewhere from the sky without any touch to the soil. We are trying, when we can, to answer to things that are coming from the bottom, from all of the citizens of Brussels. And I think this is basically our duty as politicians, and this is, I think, what we will continue to do as a member of the PS here. I will not answer to all of your propositions, but I think when you look to the question, for example, of false good friend, false friend of the salubrity and the basic situation of the street and things like that in Brussels, the proposition you had, we have discussed them already hundreds of times in the Commission of Environment, which is the place where we discuss this kind of situation for Bruxelles Propreté, for example. We are in the middle of an enormous reorganization of all the institutional framework of Bruxelles Propreté, of the way they will work, on the way they will organize themselves with the commune. We are doing that. But also, one of the fact that you are not able to vote means that you are also not able directly to access all of that information. This is a bijective problem, because we are discussing all these points. already hundreds of hours. You can have a look if you want. And it's not an easy problem because, first of all, we do not all agree, but then you have hundreds of practical problems on the way. But okay, this is why we are here. I just wanted to also mention one point. I think it's important. You were speaking about housing, accessible housing. Of course, it's an enormous challenge for Brussels now. We were, let's say, basically an international city which was still a bit on a safe corner there. Why, we do not really know, honestly, but on a safe corner on that point compared with Paris, compared with London. It's not true anymore. It's clearly not true anymore, and the COVID situation we had the 2 last years has created really an unimaginable increase of the loans and of the house prices. So we are working on that too here in the Parliament. We have just passed some months ago a new law, ordonnance, in the French, in the Brussels way of saying it, an ordonnance for trying to put a first step to limiting, to organizing, to control the evolution of the prices on a certain time. It's a first step. Of course, in the Parliament, we do not all agree on that, and it's a matter of political choice. But it's a point, and it's an important point, and I think it's very interesting that you, as international actors of Brussels, you also point that element. So I will not be longer, but I think we can continue to discuss the rest of the proposition during the drink, and whatever, I would like to finish this with really thank you, all of you, for coming today, for participating in that. Thanking Pascal and Alain for the work that is behind all of that, and hope that next time we'll see you will be as an elected member of the Brussels Parliament.
Alors, je cède à présent la parole à notre collègue Isabelle Potier.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je serai brève. Merci, Monsieur le Secrétaire d'État. Merci, Monsieur le Commissaire aux organisations européennes et internationales pour cette initiative. Merci à vous d'être venus nous rencontrer aujourd'hui. Merci pour ce manifeste. Je pense que tous les groupes politiques vont s'en emparer. Effectivement, tous les résidents bruxellois devraient partager les mêmes droits et les mêmes devoirs. Et je pense que c'est valable pour les expats comme pour les migrants. Si je dis ça, vous comprendrez immédiatement, naturellement, que l'égalité, c'est un horizon et c'est une lutte. Et donc, merci d'y contribuer par ces propositions qui sont très positives. J'appuierai ce qu'ont dit déjà certains de mes collègues. Effectivement, ce qui est, je pense, absolument central en termes de droit politique, c'est le droit de vote. Alors, pour ce qui concerne les Européens, nous avons le droit de vote aux élections locales, mais naturellement, ce qui concerne tout résident de Bruxelles, ce qui est vraiment primordial, c'est le droit de vote aux élections régionales, dans la mesure où toutes les compétences territoriales sont nichées dans ce Parlement et tous les aspects de la vie quotidienne sont nichés dans ce Parlement. Ce n'est pas, vous le savez, si vous vivez à Bruxelles depuis un certain temps, une revendication nouvelle. Je suis d'origine française, j'habite à Bruxelles depuis plus de 30 ans. J'ai fini de guerre lasse par prendre la nationalité belge en 2015. Voilà, parce que vous savez qu'un certain nombre de pays ont des accords qui permettent d'avoir la double nationalité. Donc, de guerre lasse, j'ai pris la nationalité belge, ce qui m'a permis d'être éligible et puis finalement élu dans ce Parlement en 2019. Il nous faudra donc convaincre tous les partis et j'espère vraiment que cette revendication centrale pourra aboutir. Pour le reste des propositions thématiques, effectivement, je partage le point de vue de Martin Casier. Ce sont des propositions qui concernent tous les Bruxellois, tous les résidents bruxellois et qui sont régulièrement débattus dans ce Parlement. J'en ai repéré un certain nombre qui sont en fait déjà réalisés ou en voie de l'être. Bon, je peux citer par exemple, puisque ça parle à mon cœur d'écologiste, l'objectif de réduire le nombre de voitures dans les rues à Bruxelles, développer les infrastructures cyclables, avoir des espaces publics apaisée, tout ça, renforcer l'économie circulaire aussi, tout ça c'est dans le programme d'action du gouvernement. Et j'espère qu'on sera en mesure de vous délivrer un bilan intéressant en fin de législature. Mais il y a aussi des domaines dans lesquels la région a une marge de progression, c'est évident. On le sait tous et ça fait aussi partie des politiques qui sont prévues dans le cadre de l'accord de majorité. Je pense à la propreté publique ou à la politique du logement. Vous savez que les expats sont parfois soupçonnés d'avoir un impact sur l'élévation des prix des loyers, puisque certains d'entre eux, mais pas tous, ont un pouvoir d'achat élevé. Et donc, quand je lis que vous souhaitez des informations plus claires sur le marché immobilier résidentiel, mais nous aussi, en tant que Bruxellois, et la secrétaire d'État l'a dit dernièrement, nous souhaitons un meilleur contrôle des prix des loyers sur le marché privé. Voilà donc beaucoup de propositions qui sont très positives, qui concernent tous les Bruxellois, qui sont débattues sans cesse dans ce Parlement, sur lesquelles j'espère que nous obtiendrons des avancées. Et vraiment merci pour ce travail, parce que nous ne pourrons que nous appuyer dessus, aussi bien au sein de nos groupes politiques qu'au sein de ce Parlement. Je pense que ça crée une forme d'émulation, une opportunité pour Bruxelles de mieux assumer son statut de ville cosmopolite.
Nu geef ik graag het woord aan collega Carla de Jong, notre collègue Carla de Jong. Vous avez la parole.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Thank you all for proposing this manifesto. If you heard some snoring, be sure it wasn't me, but it was my assistant's dog in training. She's always at my side, so I think it's just the beginning. I did not receive the booklet yet, but I'm very curious about it. I think it's a good initiative to think together about mobility, housing, well-being, accessibility, and all of the other topics you were talking about. We all live in the same city, in the same municipalities, in the same region. And my name is Carla. I have an Italian name, but I was born in Brussels. And sometimes journalists ask me, did it change for the good or for the bad? So I tell them, it's just different. You know, when I was little, I lived in a street with a lot of older people, most of them speaking Dutch, then French, and now I'm surrounded by European people. And it's very fun. I think you all know La Fête des Voisins, Feest van de Buren. It's the Italian, Paola, who organizes it in my street, and all of the Spanish, they make a sangria contest, and everybody goes home very happy. So it's just different, but it's not better, it's not worse, it's different. I do understand you want the right to vote. In my municipality, Woluwe-Saint-Pierre, we always put Europeans on the list. We had already a Greek councillor, a French councillor, and I think it's very good to listen to their ideas because all Europeans can bring good practices from their countries, and why not? We can learn from each other, and it's a very good thing. And then for the rest, I should say, meet the Belgians. We can learn you to love the beer, to learn from other things, to love the city, but we are neighbors and we can live together and learn from each other.
Dank u, Carla. Is er nog iemand die het woord vraagt als politicus? Oh no. Sinon, la salle, non? Ok, oui. Mr. Volt.
Hello, thank you very much, Mr. Dear President, Mr. Secretary of State, Mr. Commissioner. It's an honor to be here today. My name is Carlo Giudice. I'm born in Brussels. I have German and Italian parents. I grew up here, went to school and university, and now I'm looking my first path into the professional world. I very much resonate with all the challenges that have been described, and I applaud everyone involved in creating this manifesto. I would like to mention that one particular topic has not been talked about, digitalization. For a lot of Belgians, but also for a lot of expats, digitalization is very difficult here in Belgium. There was a recent study that during the pandemic, for instance, ITSME was required to get the COVID certificate. However, 1/4 was not able to properly register on ITSME. And it's not only ITSME, it's also about many services that the municipality offers. How do I get the composition de ménage? How do I get the driver's license and so on? It's very complicated, so I wish that such things are being included. Thank you very much.
C'est pas tombé dans l'oreille d'un sourd. Donc la digitalisation, il va falloir y travailler et améliorer les choses. Y a-t-il encore des... Oui. Ah, ouais. Oh oui, j'ai vu.
Thank you so much. My name is Stipe Odak. I'm a professor at University Louvain-la-Neuve. Fortunately, I missed the Constitutive Assembly of the Manifesto, but I salute it deeply. It's a wonderful project. What I appreciate most is really the humble steps they take, and they're practically easy to implement on many levels. One thing that I find missing a bit is the sphere of culture. Well, if this is international city, it does not just fulfill practical needs, it's also a need of many people who are derooted from their places to find a place and home here, which is reflected mostly through cultural life. And I know, again, this is difficult to resolve in a multilinguistic city where the state has also the interest in promoting national languages, but also the international profile, I believe, should be deeply reflected. First in investment into international cultural project, and then establishing houses of international culture. We do have one, for instance, Passaporta, which is nominally international house, which organizes events only in French and Dutch. Here or there's a token event in English. Non-responding to emails, by the way. So it does not seem just nominally having a play. It really means something being done hopefully quickly. And second thing now, which I get after listening everything, could be a little bit on the pragmatic front, since we have this and we hear, so nobody's debating democratic rights, nobody's debating voting. The question is what happens next, and perhaps as an idea would be to have a portal or something where those two sides would integrate. We heard the gentleman here speaking that many of these policies are already debated. We desire them, both sides desire them, but either we will both be continuing inventing a wheel, or there could be a common place where there should be updates. The Parliament debated this policy today, this is decision, this is what's blocking it further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Encore des idées, portail, maison des cultures, culture.
Thank you so much for the word. Thank you so much for this initiative. I think it's a beautiful example of democracy to invite people that have no political rights to be at the house of democracy of the city. So it's an honor to be sitting here with you, and thank you for listening. I think we've spoken about democracy, and I heard some people talking about the right of voting, but it's democracy, it's also the right of being elected. And at the moment, we do not have any way of expressing our voice through that direct means of democracy. I'm also concerned with, I hear this discussion about the participation at the regional level being shifted very much to the federal level. We understand that for us to be sitting here, you need a constitutional reform, or at least a decision that comes from a federal level. Now, I don't think that we should wait for a federal level to enhance the participation of this large segment of the population at the regional level. For example, with the creation of a regional assembly, this parliament could determine that certain aspects of the life of Brussels need to be consulted with a regional assembly that must have people that do not have the legal rights to have themselves represented in this house. For example, when you decide aspects of your budget, when you of the region, when you decide aspects of mobility, when you decide aspects of civic participation, you decide as parliamentarians that that decision cannot just be taken in this house, but should also listen to this regional assembly. You've also talked about communal elections. Let us remind ourselves that communes have little power to the lives of Brussels. In fact, I am of the opinion that Brussels would be better off with scrapping these communes and having a more centralized administration that has a proximity and has an overall view of the city. A lot of the problems we have in Brussels, from waste collection to transport, have to do with this very complex administration from local to regional that creates a lot of problems. And finally, just let me tell you one story about myself. I live in Brussels, I am Portuguese, but as I said, we don't have the right to be elected to do politics in this country, except for local or European level. So I was a parliamentary candidate for the National Parliament of Portugal. But so in Portugal we have a representation specific for Portuguese like me that live abroad. But as a result of that, when I came back from the election, I lost my job because my company wasn't very happy with the fact that I was engaged with politics. In Belgium, there is specifications for congé électoral, so there is measures to protect people that decide to pursue a political career, as you probably know yourselves. It's very limited to federal level, but this is a story to remind us, all of us, that there are still a lot of blockages from participation to lack of legal dispositions to make sure that citizens can really fully be actively engaged with the decisions and with the democracy of their political system. Thank you.
Thank you. Il y avait notre collègue Martin qui souhaitait réagir.
Oui, je ne sais pas comment ça se passe, Monsieur le Président, si on fait un peu de débat ou si...
Vous avez la parole. Pour une fois qu'on peut débattre et que je ne vous coupe pas la parole en disant que vous êtes
ça,
trop long.
C'est vrai, parce que je suis souvent trop long. Mais c'est mon côté culture française un petit peu volubile. No, I just wanted to answer to some elements of your point, because I think they are very important. Of course, when I said the right to vote, it's obviously the right to be elected. I mean, in the way of for my party, for myself, you can't have one and not the other. So it's obviously both. If I wasn't clear on that, sorry for that. Secondly, for your assembly, the president said it before. We have done an enormous step forward in Brussels with the Commission Delibérative. So it's not a permanent assembly, but it's a structural way of putting citizens with parliamentary at work on specific thematics, and within the citizens in these commissions, people like you can be taken. So it's not something that is limited to Belgian people or to people that has the right to vote, but it's open to all the people living in Brussels, even under 18, because it's starting from 16 years old that you can be taken by chance. I don't remember how you say it in English. That you can be taken by chance to be part of that. We have already had third commissions. We have this evening, I'm participating with my colleague Isabel to the fourth one that will be this evening, speaking about biodiversity in the middle of a city like Brussels. So we have this assembly that are existing. We are the first country, city, region in the world of implementing that concretely in our representative democracy. So we are on the way. Of course, the question of having a permanent assembly is another story. It's another step forward. There are parties like mine, like Ecolo, there are some parties that are thinking that it's a nice, an important step also for the Senate, for a future evolution of the Senate in Brussels, in Belgium, sorry. We haven't yet a Senate in Brussels, why not? But it's not, I think we shouldn't, it would be too complicated, but whatever, there are thoughts about that. So this was an element I wanted to add also on that part. And then you had also a remark on, yes, of course, for the holidays, for the political holidays. Let's say it's true, we have that in Belgium, but we have that only for people working in the public administration.
How is that constitutional?
It's organized, I'm not so sure it's a constitutional right. It's organized within the Règlement de Travail of the public administration. Yes, but it's not true for the people working in the private system, and it's, for example, not true for the people, for the citizens who are elected for the Commission Deliberative, who are chosen for the Commission Deliberative. So we have to do that in the evening or during the weekend. It's also, of course, an investment that not everybody can do. So there are still places to improve that, and it's also one of the things we would like to go forward with.
Merci Martin. Merci d'avoir rappelé aussi tout ce que le Parlement fait. Voilà. Ah, il y a encore... Ah, je n'avais pas vu. Je vous présente un autre de nos... Ah, pardon. J'ai un chat dans la gorge. Un autre de nos collègues. Mais il va se présenter tout seul, je ne vais pas le présenter.
Merci, merci Monsieur le Président. Geoffroy Commence de Brachen, également député bruxellois. Et ici, je pense que c'est très intéressant de pouvoir discuter avec un panel représentatif. Because here it's just the beginning. You have to know that. C'est juste le début. Parce que ce que nous allons découvrir ici, et j'ai du mal à imaginer que 1800 ou 1900 personnes auraient tous la même idée sur Bruxelles. Et j'ose espérer qu'il y ait des idées peut-être disruptives, d'autres choses en plus. Parmi vous, parmi les autres personnes qui ont pu participer, j'espère qu'elles seront nombreuses à pouvoir débattre, échanger et peut-être faire évoluer les choses ici. Comme bruxellois, je suis évidemment intéressé de cet échange, mais aussi comme, j'ai envie de dire, ancien belge ou belge ayant longtemps habité à l'étranger, puisque j'ai eu la chance d'habiter pendant 11 années en France, en Allemagne, au Luxembourg, en Angleterre, et de découvrir évidemment ces cultures qui m'enrichissent aujourd'hui dans ce débat parlementaire. Et grâce, j'ose le dire aussi, grâce à ma collaboratrice parlementaire, c'est vrai que je pense que nous apportons 80% des questions parlementaires en sein de la Commission des Affaires européennes. Donc c'est vrai que nous serons heureux aussi, grâce à vous, de pouvoir amener d'autres questions, d'autres interrogations par rapport à ces questions-là. Donc n'hésitez pas à alimenter, à venir vers nous, à nous proposer des questions, parce que c'est grâce à vous, ici, et peut-être en dehors, pas uniquement dans cette Assemblée, que nous pourrons encore alimenter ces débats qui sont essentiels. Nous sommes la capitale de l'Europe. Je suis un Européen convaincu. Je pense que la plupart d'entre nous, ceux qui sont ici, qui viennent ici et qui assument cette présence, sont des Européens convaincus. Et donc nous devons pouvoir faire vivre cette Europe au sein de sa capitale. C'est très important, et je dirais qu'au-delà de la capitale de l'Europe que nous sommes, j'aime aussi à le rappeler en ces temps troublés, nous sommes aussi le siège de l'OTAN. Et c'est aussi important de rappeler que nous sommes aussi le siège d'une multitude de capitales, d'une multitude d'institutions européennes et extra-européennes. Et c'est très important de pouvoir également les faire vivre sur notre territoire. Nous avons, je pense, 52 000, et un peu moins maintenant avec le départ des Russes, mais 52 000 diplomates et attachés diplomatiques dans notre ville-région. C'est la ville au monde avec le plus de représentants diplomatiques au monde, plus que New York, Washington et tout autre. Et c'est important de faire savoir cela aussi. À l'époque, et j'en terminerai avec ça, à l'époque, la ville de Bruxelles avait créé un réseau des Power Cities. Certains de mes collègues s'en souviennent. Je pense que nous devons faire exister ce réseau. Ce sont des villes qui n'ont pas forcément un pouvoir économique, mais qui sont des vraies villes de pouvoir. Aujourd'hui, c'est vrai, Bruxelles est plus connue que la Belgique à l'étranger. Et nous pouvons continuer à faire valoir cela. Et ce sera peut-être aussi grâce à vous, grâce à ce travail, comme je le disais, qui n'est que le début. Donc, j'espère qu'on pourra encore échanger de façon vraiment constructive. Désolé, je l'ai fait en français. Je pense qu'il y avait peut-être une traduction, je l'espère.
Merci beaucoup, mon cher collègue. Merci beaucoup. applaudir. Allez, on prend la dernière question et puis je redonnerai la parole à Monsieur le secrétaire d'État. Je vous en prie.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Bon, first of all, thank you very much, especially to the Monsieur les députés, Mesdames les députés, that you guys have come here. You are making this effort to come here to listen to us. I think how many of us of the project came? Maybe 20. I'm counting. I would say that the 20th commune of Brussels, which is the Euro bubble, has like 10,000 or more people. And these people, and I am part of them because my name is Victor, by the way, and I work in the European Parliament. These people don't really involve themselves into the life being of Brussels, of the capital of Europe. And I was part of that, and I regret it. I've been in Brussels for 5 years, and now it's the first time, I would say, because of COVID, because I was getting bored, and a way to, have a hobby was to involve myself much more in the life of my city, of my region. I would say that one of the ways to involve us more is, and this is a secret, but please don't tell my colleagues because they would impale me, tax us. I'm not kidding, tax us. Because we are talking about thousands of people who work in the European bubble. We are the 20th commune of this region, and shielding ourselves with the no taxation, no representation, then we live kind of in a parallel Brussels. Today, for example, I live in the Euro bubble. Well, yeah. This is a kind of a commune that is between Brussels, Ville, and Etterbeek. Very weird. Going from my house to Place Jourdain, I've seen a lot of cars, a lot of traffic. Most of them, where did they work? In the council, in the commission, and in the parliament. And I was, I was like in my kind of pajamas walking around, and I was thinking, guys, yes, Brussels doesn't have the best public transport in the world, but just use it. Then you will just create a lot of traffic, and then you will complain about the fact that there's a lot of traffic. So again, tax us. Indirect or direct ways, you name it. Maybe you guys are not the ones in this regional parliament to tax. I don't know the competences. I don't really know them. But you may do non-legislative motions. I also work in a parliament, the European Parliament, and we don't really do laws, but we do a lot of non-legislative motions, and please do not tell anyone that I told you that I gave you these...
Je retiens donc, taxez-nous.
Oui, taxez-nous.
C'est rare d'entendre taxez-nous.
No, really, just please don't say, oh, Victor said that in the regional parliament. I'm giving you this idea because it's very, 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 very important to try to contact, to approach all these tens of thousands of people who work in the Commission, the Council, and the Parliament, who have been here really for some of them tens of years, and I have found some of them who do not speak even French. I'm from Barcelona, and in Barcelona we also have a language, Catalan, and I always try people to learn both languages, Spanish and Catalan. If I come here, well, it's nice to speak French and Dutch, to which I have learned, and I would expect everyone to do that. But sadly, it doesn't happen. Guys, really, here in the Brussels Regional Parliament, you have an opportunity to push for that, to lobby for that. And if they don't want to hear you, well, it's on them, just, you are the capital of Europe, as Monsieur le Député has said. Big picture. You're the capital of the European Union. This is a territory that goes from the Mediterranean to the Arctic Pole and from the Atlantic to the Black Sea. In the end, there is no other city in the European Union like this one. So set yourself as an example. Set yourself as an example. Be proud of the capital of Bruxelles capital. Be proud of it and take all the potential. And you will see that, well, here we are 20. But if we work together, I do really believe that after so many years, as you said, we will set this as a true capital for a true union. Thank you very much.
Merci. Merci à toutes et à tous pour vos interventions. Je vais passer la parole à notre secrétaire d'État qui va peut-être répondre ou donner quelques arguments et puis clôturer.
Very shortly about the taxes. You know, immediately certain enthusiastic, but I've seen everybody here and they were not all that enthusiastic actually. But it's a little bit more complicated in the way of, you probably know that it's all ruled by international treaties. But the reality too is that many of Europeans working in Brussels actually pay taxes. It's only the one who working for the European institutions, the European Commission, basically, who and Parliament to some extent that don't pay taxes. All the rest are actually paying taxes. So it's a little bit more nuanced than that. But of course, we'll see what will happen. But we are not going to say too loud because I think there's a French president who would like us to tax you and then he will say come to Strasbourg. So because he's a little bit too active the last months again, so we have to calm him a little bit down on that. That being said, for the digitalization, you're absolutely right. We discovered it together, Alain and me, and we, the Prime Minister, we talked to the Prime Minister of Belgium, and he agreed to change the system so that diplomats, that European civil servants will get an identity card like us with a chip in it and a unique number. So they are working on it on the Minister of Interior. So the Prime Minister absolutely agreed. We intervened at the time, and so things are working out, and I hope soon he will announce properly that he has taken the initiative, but it was us who took it. So Alexander de Croo is working on it. On the cultural issue, I would like to say that in 2030, Brussels would like to be the European capital of culture. 2030 is also the year that the Kingdom of Belgium exists, 200 years. Well, at least we hope it exists still at that time. So we will be 200 years there. And so one of the things is that we ask people to work on it and make a real international cultural thing, because you know, we are a city without a dominant culture. We are a city of minorities, which is pretty unique in the world. And I know that French is the lingua franca, but it's not because you speak French that you are adapt to the French culture. That's sometimes a mistake that is being made by certain. So we are a city of minorities without a dominant culture, and we want that to be reflected in the whole idea of Brussels Cultural Capital 2030 in a new Belgian context. So we are working on that. And then finally, your suggestion. We have already decided that we will make a kind of permanent consultative council in the framework of commissioner, because we also think like you, it's not a one thing that we have to do, and now we have the report, and then we say, okay, we give it to every minister, we give it to every deputy, and maybe we'll have a debate, and then we'll see what's going on. So we want to have this continued on a permanent base. We're still thinking, and we will have a debate in the Parliament, I agreed with the President, how we are going to do it. Of course, when we do it in the Commissioner's office, he has to change the statutes, we will do all that kind of stuff, and then we will have a permanent consultative organ. I already talked with Rachid about doing it in this Conseil too. We need to debate about that too. Is the Parliament ready to do so, yes or no, under which form? Of course, when it becomes in the Parliament, then you have the whole question of representativity that will be put on the table. So there will be debate in a Parliamentary Commission of European and International Affairs about this, but notwithstanding the result of that debate, we are already going to do a kind of permanent consultative council in the framework of Alain's office. So that's already been decided. So somehow we are already responding to you, but maybe it can go a little bit further, but that's of course a decision then of the Parliament and no longer my decision. So to end, I think it's, once again, thank you all for the contribution. I can promise you that for the members of the government, but as you heard today also for the members of this Parliament, it will be a working document. We think we should on an annual basis give updates what's being done on that. That will be one of the tasks of this consultative council. And we will come back to you, and you certainly will be continued and informed. And once again, this is only the beginning. Thank you very much.
Voilà, nous allons clôturer les travaux je vais clôturer cette séance, et permettez-moi, ce qui est le plus agréable, c'est de vous inviter au drink à la cafétéria qui se trouve là-bas au fond, à ma gauche.
Unfortunately, I have to leave. I don't want to be impolite, but I have a meeting about the Chinese embassy, and that's something complicated. So, unfortunately, it's an.
Ce sera moins agréable que notre drink, mais tant pis pour vous. Tant pis pour vous. Merci encore à toutes et à tous pour votre contribution et votre présence. Merci.